I am on Galveston Island. Galveston is an island in Texas. And you can see out on the horizon there, you can see some derricks, some oil rigs and some oil tankers as well. Quite an impressive area. And I'm down here on the beach at Galveston, and I'm here to photograph Galveston Pier and the old fairground that's on the pier here. Now what I was wanting to do was a high key black and white, almost fine art image. And as you'll have seen by the title and the thumbnail, this video was trying to get me to pre-visualize the shot, and the two parts I've been let down on here today is A, the sky, and secondly, the fairground's actually closed today, and I was wanting to try and capture a really long exposure with the wheel going round so that it was just a simple blur and you could just see the outline and the main centre of it. But that's not to be, so I'm having to change tack quite quickly. What I wanted to do with the blue sky was I wanted to shoot the blue sky, get that into the black and white module of Lightroom, and then start attacking the individual colours. So back in the olden days with film, we would put on different colours of filters onto black and white T-grain film to affect the colour spectrum within the films. That's what we used to do. So if you were playing around with greens and reds, let's just say you were shooting a tomato with some greenery, and you put on a red filter to increase the contrast. What it used to do was it used to hold the reds back and pass the greens, which is the opposite side of the spectrum, through real easy. So it used to make the tomato white or lighter, and the dark greens very green, or very dark, because it's black and white. And what I was wanting to do here was try and expose for the blues, start playing around with the blue filter in post in the black and white module, and the cyans and the yellows, to try and get a real dark, contrasty sky against the pre-lit structures here behind me. But that's not going to work, so I'm having to rethink this. So what I was actually trying to achieve here was shooting a square, introducing the waves here in the foreground and the reflection just in the middle of frame there, in here, as the tide is going out. And if I take this up here, we've got the left hand side of frame just being on the left hand side of frame as you're looking at it here, and just that's as wide as it goes, taking the right hand side of frame to the right hand side of frame there, but making this a square. And in the foreground down here, you can see that we've got the reflections, which is going to create some reflections from the structures on here. The waves here, there's not many whites on here, but I have a lot of reflection from the sky, and I'm not going to use a polarizer here. The structure in the legs are really strong, so this is almost a very strong man-made structure against delicate colours. If I just whiz you around here for a second, you'll see that in the sky over here, we don't actually have much, let me put this on manual focus for you. We don't have much dynamic range in the sky here, it's all quite muted. So that's actually giving me quite a soft colour palette to shoot this. So if I keep coming up past the structure, you can see here that there are some light clouds and lines in the sky that may become compositional elements here. And again, making sure that I don't introduce stuff that wasn't here. I'm not doing that, not even pursuit of fine art. Probably would be okay to replace skies, but I'm not going to do that. It is what it is tonight. And I want to try and be honest and remain honest about my photography, despite wanting to push this a little bit more in contrast than black and white. So in terms of positioning here, as you can see looking back down the pier, we've got some separation on the pier legs where we're looking underneath the line. If I bring us back to this point here, where's it gone? That point there is the central part of what I'm looking for. Initially, what I was looking to do was have this leg here, this one here, be in the middle of frame and in line, and that was going to allow me to get a better representation left to right of the legs spreading out. But the tide, as you can see, isn't far enough out to allow that to happen. And I want the tide or the water in the foreground. So I'm going to have to set up just with this and just try and work out how close I can get with the bottom of the frame to include those waves, but also have enough height in the sky here to start incorporating some of the elements of sky here. Now if I just put the Pentax on its side and just get it switched on, put it on live view because I just want to play around with this a little bit. So I've got enough landscape here widthways to be shooting on a portrait here to the right to include the carousel on the left and the big wheel on the right, both within frame, and then just use that setting my boundaries for a square and playing around with the top and bottom. Just remember, I don't like shooting wide.
Because of my honest approach to photography, it's really important for me to frame up what I want to shoot rather than shoot a little bit wider and just crop in post to make the frame work.
Enough there because I've moved closer. I do, but what I'm finding here is the big column and its reflection is just inside a third from the right hand frame. So if that's my width, I want that reflection to probably be on the right hand third. I'm going to move this across, sit it down and try it, and that's probably around about me actually. So I'm going to go ahead and just set up final tweaks and take this, and I'll show you what I'm doing. So just by activating live view here, it's only going to be a single shot this, so I'm just going to be quite rudimentary with how I do this and make sure that I've got everything level. That's level there, so if I tighten everything up. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to make sure that I'm zoomed in as far as I can. Because remember, when I zoom in, it's not just the zooming in, it's increasing the detail because you're closer to the subject. And each part of the detail becomes larger in the frame. Now you'll see here that at the bottom we've actually got the reflection in that wet sand. I'm not quite sure we'll have that, because if I'm going to go square and I'm wanting to increase more sky, remember, I need to probably move this up the way. So here you can just see the start of that cloud, and if I go back to a little bit wider, I can get more of that cloud in. And then what we're going to have probably is that vertical here on the right hand third, and we'll possibly have the pier about the third as well, which might be quite nice. So I'm just going to take this, let me just go to F11. I'm going to go 30 seconds just to try this as an exposure. Now the lights actually are on tonight despite the park being closed, which I wasn't expecting. Remember my composition, just above the bottom of the frame here. The square will probably end up just below the top of the frame here. Get some sky, get some contrast in there. And I took a wee trial shot there with filters on at 30 seconds, and it's far too long, it's just too much nothing. And now we've got a fisherman in scene as well. So one of the things I need to try and do here probably is just play around with variations of shutter speeds, and I think if I go 4 seconds, it's probably about ideal. I don't want to go too much more than that, because what we're actually going to end up getting with that, if we go too long, I start picking up these purples and colours in the water because I wasn't expecting the lights to be on. So if I go very long, it will be very light because we're picking up lots of reflections from the sky in the water, because remember, no polarizer. So what to do? I'm actually thinking, so 4 seconds, I'm going to limit the number of lights that are on in this wheel as well. 4 seconds might still be too long, but it's probably the right amount of motion for this water because the waves aren't big and the water's quite flat already. So let me try this. So let me just take this, what am I dealing with here? 5 seconds. And what I'm going to watch, just the amount of detail I've still got in the sea here. Well, it's very minimal, but I'm getting no detail in the sky there. So let me just come down to 3 seconds. This is trial and error, really. I'm starting to get some detail here, some more detail in the sky. I'm going to take it down to 2 seconds, which will darken the sky, give me less movement in the sea, because I think it's still probably too much. Yeah, that's okay actually. So quite a radical change. I came out here with the intent that this video would be about pre-visualise your shot. None of it's worked out tonight. The sky's not blue. The lights are not supposed to be on. The wheel is supposed to be turning. None of these things I envisaged. But that's one of the things with photography. Sometimes you have to just to roll with it and make stuff up. To recap, my visualization was strong contrast black and white, play around with the blues infiltration in black and white module of Lightroom, darken that sky, any clouds that I've got there, they would be white and I would bring them out. The structure would be really strong, the wheel would be turning. In addition, this carousel on the post goes around and it goes up as well. And that would have just been shadow marks all the way up, which should have been really quite cool, but because the park's not open, it's not. Just not going my way tonight, so I am shit out of luck. Never mind. The best part about doing photography, remember, is taking photographs. And it's really important that I get back into this. On the way back to the condo, to the flat, to the apartment, I might actually stop further along here and just take one more photograph. Just to cap off the night. It's a beautiful night. The light's superb. It's very soft. And it's soft because we've got this big storm front coming in at the back here, which is going to stop me coming out tomorrow morning to get a blue sky and a strong image, as I've talked about trying to do tonight. So, and I'll do a long exposure just with one of these wharfs. There's all these wharfs and the life buoys on each of them. And that might be an opportunity just to do an ultra long exposure, which I intended to do here. But as you see, 2, 3, 4, 8 seconds was kind of my gambit tonight, my remit. So didn't work out here, but that's okay. Don't stress. Photography is supposed to be a relaxer, not something to wind you up. This is the next morning and I'm back down on, it's actually called Babes Beach in Galveston, and I was supposed to try and come here last night to try something quite wacky. But no sooner had I left the previous location down by the big Ferris wheel, the weather turned and it looked like this within about 20 minutes. There was a massive storm coming in from the north, and I decided not to shoot on the beach because it was just too dangerous to be out there with what was looming up ahead, as you can see here. The following hour, well, we had this going on. confirming the reason not to shoot was the right one to do. Now I'm down, as I said, on Babes Beach, and this here is what I'm looking at. And what I want to do here, again, is something quite unusual, quite complicated, probably too complicated. But it's my way of getting back into photography and re-energizing the things that got me interested in photography, and particularly landscapes all these whiles ago. It was about the challenges. Last night was a challenge. Last night didn't go well, but I'm sure the images will be fine once I finish them. So this wharf here is what I'm looking at, and it's made out of crudely chiseled rock slabs, granite slabs, and there's nothing pretty about this. This is probably one of the crudest wharfs I think I've seen for a long, long time, but they're actually every 200 meters or so on the beach. You can see the other one just down there to the right of frame, past the umbrellas. So I had to look long and hard for the right one here, because many of these posts, as this one here, it's not in the middle. And the mounds on either side, they're not the same either. This pole at least is relatively perpendicular. And when I was starting to look at these, I was starting to think that I was going to have to warn OCD people, or have to warn people with OCD to look away, because it's dreadful. But at least this one is straight. Now what you'll see here is I've got this here, the life buoy is above the horizon, and I want to try and keep it there in proportion to the pole and the dynamics here of the wharf itself. If I pull back, we can see that over here we've got some water breaking, and I think that I'll probably do this one square, but I need to pull this camera far enough forward so that I can clear the breaking waves and just sit somewhere around about there, but in a square. But the part that's really difficult here, the part I'm trying to do, which is different, is the maths. So what I'm trying to do here is, it's a simple shot, but I'm trying to complicate the living daylight out of it. And why I'm wanting to do that is do an ultra long exposure shot, just as I was last night, by applying 16 stops of light reduction. So when we do that, we increase the shutter speed and we reduce the light by 65,536 times. So whatever our base exposure and shutter speed is, we have to multiply that by 65,536. Now it sounds really complicated, but it's not. All you need to do is know your 2 times table, I guess. So let me show you. Let me show you what I'm seeing. So with the camera here, the camera is actually set up at 85 millimeters. And at 85 millimeters, I'm actually getting, let's see if we can do this, I'm getting the waves both sides here, and that's what I'm trying to cut out. So I'm going to have to move the camera further out towards the life buoy, and I'm also too far away from it. So I'm going to move this until I can't see the waves at the side.
Now I'm going to keep this in the video rather than take this away, and it's to illustrate that these vlogs are actually really hard work to do on your own. Previously I've been lucky enough to have people with me to do my videography, and in some cases entire film crews. I really take my hat off to people who do this kind of stuff regularly with regular content, particularly when the cinematic intent of what they're trying to achieve is becoming more and more complex as time goes on. Respect to them.
So that there is the point, and I'm about 40 meters away from the camera and about 40 meters to the buoy as well. And I'll show you here what I'm seeing on the back of the camera, because remember, I'll probably shoot this square. You'll see here that just at each side of the frame here we have the waves breaking, but if I crop this in square, we're going to lose that anyway. And this is all about the red life buoy and the cracks in the rocks, giving some abstract texture, because it's ugly as a dog, this thing. Ugly as. But I think it might be quite interesting once I get this all framed up and get this into post and get it quite grungy. I think it might be quite nice. This long exposure, this super long exposure, everything else will be what it ends up being. Now, whilst I talked before about trying to keep that life buoy above the horizon, because we've moved everything forward, the proportionality and relativity of all these compositional elements change. So I have to make sure that I've still got my life buoy above the horizon to try and make sense of this. And I do but just, so I'm going to lower the tripod just a little bit, because this is probably where I'm going to shoot from. So the interesting part here is I'm actually trying to keep the life buoy central, but it's not central on the wharf. So I'll have some flexibility about how I crop this when I get to that point in post. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a quick shutter speed test.
Now, I mentioned I had some choices in crop, and what I mean by that is choice one is keep the buoy right in the middle. The second one is the little rusty stump to the right of that, make that the middle, which shoves the life buoy off to the left. And this actually makes the wharf a little bit more symmetrical either side. Or thirdly, do I include the rock on the right hand side, giving some visual interest and some balance to the frame with the life buoy on the left.
So looking in my bag, schoolboy error, I've only got 2 10 stops, we've got 20 stops. Gosh, so I know that working at 100 ISO, and if we want to get the 30 seconds at 10, another 10 stops takes me actually to 4 hours, and I'm not doing a 4 hour exposure. So I'm going to have to set up my base exposure here at 800 ISO, 1600 ISO would be 4 stops actually. So let me set my base to 1600 ISO at f11.
So I'm going down a fairly deep and complicated rabbit hole here. And this subject here, it's too complicated to try and explain in a video that's not solely dedicated to that, but I'll do a video on this dedicated to the maths in a future video. What I'm trying to do here is, starting with my base at 1600, calculate my 20 stops light reduction, and then back calculate in camera the 4 stops to get me back to my calculation that I need for the 16 stops. As I say, complicated, and one for another day.
So we're on to bulb here. There we are, and we're on. So on a really clear day, we know that the horizon is about 50 miles away. And today, because it's clear, the horizon way in the distance here is 50 miles or 80 kilometers away. And what I'm trying to show you here is that on uber long exposures like we've just done, you'll always see a dark line, and you can just see here on video, but you see it better on a long exposure. The water gets gradually darker the further we get away from the camera, but that very crisp dark line at the very horizon is actually the curvature of the Earth, where it's dipping away from us. That, along with Belt of Venus, it's one of these things that when you know what you're looking at, it's just remarkable. So standing watching a 15-minute exposure isn't the most entertaining of viewing, so I'm going to take this opportunity when it's shooting to let you know what I've got coming up in the next little while. About a month ago, I said to my daughter I was thinking of giving photography up because I wasn't enjoying it, and I wasn't enjoying the prospect of having to shoot for content for YouTube, and my balance was all wrong. Photography first, videography second, but the trick then is to get into the photography to allow videos like this to happen. And both the shoot in Utah and the shoot last night, taking the carousel and trying to work stuff out, overcoming problems, kind of reinvigorated my passion for, at a very basic level, taking photographs. And I've been doing a power of thinking over the last 6-7 months when I haven't been posting, and I've got lots of stuff to come. I've got stuff actually about doing the maths with long exposure photography and knowing your 2x table and not having to rely on apps. I've got videos coming about black and white and fine art. Another one asking the question, what is fine art? And another video, why is fine art so damned expensive? And I'll be talking to my my specialist printer up in Auckland, Sanji, who's both a fine art landscape photographer, but also a fine art printer. And we'll have a little discussion about understanding what fine art is, but also why is it so expensive. And we'll go through a process of trying to determine why that might be. Because remember, as a photographer, if you're selling your work, you're not just selling photographic paper plus postage, you're selling your creation. And there's a value to your time, and there's a value to your expertise. I also want to try and do a video about shooting analog with your digital. And it's an interesting concept, and more will become clear when I shoot that one, but shooting analog with your digital, that's another video that's coming. There's lots of other ones coming, to be honest. I'm still looking at new equipment. What that will be, I'm not quite sure. And I just want to try and keep getting under the skin of photography rather than, as Thomas Heaton said, being a man with a camera. I don't want to be that guy either. And I want to try keep poking the bear of photography to understand why we do it and give the thought process some deep and deliberate thought. We have got about 3 minutes left in that exposure, but I won't know what I've got now for another 15 minutes or so. Almost like we did back in film days. I'm going to leave you with these photographs at the end, both from today, one photograph from today, and the photograph or photographs from last night. And even this one today, I'll do a black and white. I'll play around with filtration if I can, because we do have some blue in the sky. We'll try and get the polarised colour between the blue and the white clouds, see if that works. I'm not sure if it will. And I'll also do a black and white and colour of the one from last night. So that's me done from Texas, and indeed done from the USA. Time to go back, tidy up, get ready to go to the airport, because I'm flying in just a few short hours. It's been great being back. Awesome to have you along. Lovely to see you again. Until next time, you keep shooting. You take care, have fun, and we'll see you very, very soon. Until then, cheerio.
Now this photograph hasn't worked at all. There's reciprocity failure to the negative here, as well as artifacting across the sensor, a good reminder for me that mirrored cameras leak light. Rather than do nothing with it, well, I'm going to show you 3 versions of it. And funnily enough, the artifacting actually enhances the photograph here with the treatment. And in the same way that people expose vintage, out-of-date, expired C41 film, this is the kind of stuff that sells in galleries, if only it had been on purpose. Now I snuck back to the pier here to capture the motion in the fairground finally, and this is the shot that I'm happy with from the combined shoot. To celebrate the colour of the fairground in these conditions, I've left this as colour rather than black and white. Thanks for watching everyone, wherever you are, and until next time, we'll see you soon. Bye bye.